I am super, super excited because I'm in Salinas today, and it is actually a beautiful day outside. I've never been in Salinas where I don't need a jacket. So how exciting is that? I walked out with a dress in the middle of it's February right now, and It's awesome out there. So great day in Salinas, and super excited to be here with you, Joseph, at Ippolito, at your office. I've been talking to you about this for quite some time. So I'm super excited that you agreed to sit down with me and have a conversation. So welcome to This Is Ag.
Thank you.
So before we get started, can you introduce yourself? Who is Joseph? Who are you? And what do you do?
So my name is Joseph Mallobox. I'm born and raised in Gonzales. Grew up in the ag industry. I am the vice president of human resources for Ippolito International, who we have 5 running companies and just shy about 1,800 employees. And I grew up in Salinas in the ag industry. I left for a while, went to Santa Barbara, thinking I was going to jump out of ag, and I jumped right back in and came back home.
Why is that? I mean, it's like, why did you decide to jump out of ag and then jump back in again?
You know, I'm aging myself, but I've been in ag for probably 23 years in HR. And I think there was just a time in my life, personally and professionally, where I thought it was time to try something different. And although I kind of still stayed in ag, it wasn't row crops, it wasn't packing, it wasn't anything to that nature. And I enjoyed it, but it was nothing like row crops and the packing and what have you. This is a different world. And I missed it.
Was a calling. It called you back.
It called me back.
It called you back. And you grew up in Salinas, so you grew up surrounded by ag.
I did.
Right? So how is that? Is that why you decided to go into agriculture?
Absolutely not.
No.
So
you wanted to get far away as possible.
I grew up in Gonzales. My parents, by the time I hit kinder, my mom had gotten out of ag and went into the school district. I was her last child to go through school. And just growing up, I mean, to your point, I was surrounded by ag. My father was in agriculture. Both my grandparents were in agriculture. I have a cousin who's a labor contractor. I mean, it was surrounded by me.
Yep.
And so when here came college, I said, I'm not doing it. I'm going to go to the big city of New York or big city of Chicago. I'm getting out. I'm not going to be surrounded by fields.
Yeah.
And although we were raised to respect our ag industry and at all levels, I just didn't feel it was for me. So I went to school for administration of justice. And I interned at a couple of police departments and the court and what have you. And there was something that just kept calling me back to agriculture. And I purposely stood out of trying to find any jobs at ag. And it didn't really work that way. So I started my ag career, in HR at a staffing agency company. At that time was Manpower. Today, the CEO and president is Jan Sonneman. She owns Slingshot. But she's really the one that gave me my first opportunity. And I knew nothing. I didn't know, all it was push you in there and start recruiting. And those days it was you go and you knock on doors to get the business. And I did. And I went to Taylor Farms and knocked on the door, and they were like, we need help. Bring us people. And that small order of, whatever it was, 50 or 60 people turned into 300-400 people.
Wow.
And at that time, they didn't really have an HR department. And I still at that point was like, I don't know that this is what I want. And I honestly didn't know that my Spanish wasn't that good. And I pursued the staffing and for about 4 years, and then got hired on by Taylor as their first HR manager in California.
Oh, really?
And we went from quickly 400 employees to about 1,200 employees within 2 years.
And you were part of that.
And I was a part of that, and I was at the plant level. And so I stayed at the plant level, and I did the Yuma transition for about 4 years. And then as I promoted, I didn't have to go relocate. I just went back and forth as needed. And then I was moved over to corporate and started to do more strategic national type of stuff. And I stayed at Taylor for just shy of 16 years. And then by that time, I was embedded in it. I wasn't going anywhere. So, but at that time, after 16 years, my daughter had gone off to college and she's doing her thing. And I thought, if I'm going to move, this is the time to move. And so I did. But again, there was just a passion. And again, it was my family. It was hard to not stay in ag when that's what I was surrounded by. That's what I was taught. Both my parents again, we're ag, but my mom was the one who really had the passion for it. She loved the Salinas Valley. She loved driving through Highway 101 and looking at the crops. And that was just her passion. And she instilled that in all of us, and especially in myself. And so I'm proud of where I am today. And I love Ippolito. I love who I work for. It's a great company. And I'm thankful for my growing up and in the career and what have you. I'm very thankful for, my management at Taylor and, as I grew up the ladder. And one thing I learned in agriculture is you just know was not in our vocabulary. If we wanted to open a plant in Seattle, we went and we opened the plant with no questions asked. If wherever the case may be, we just did it. And so coming here to Ippolito, which is a smaller company, but yet we're growing, with my boss, Ronnie, I just don't tell him no. So whatever it is that we have to do for the employees or what have you, it's done.
As you were talking, it was interesting. I just recently went to this show by Paul Simon and Garfunkel show. So there's a song in that, right? The Homeward Bound. So I don't know why that started playing in my head as you were talking about, I want it to be all places. But, right. the home draws you back.
Yes.
But there's something about agriculture. There's something I can see, right? I mean, all of us, when we have it around us as growing up, you kind of want to try something else and come back. But for me, it was a totally different experience, right? Somebody totally new to agriculture coming into ag. And what attracted me about agriculture was the warmth, the family feeling,
yes.
Especially coming in as a CFO at that time. You think you're working for a corporate kind of industry, and it's so unlike that. Think about your relationship with me, right? We met a few years ago and you moved on to different roles, but we've been connected and you feel more like a family or a friend to me, not any connection at work, right? So that's how I feel ag is. It's like everybody, like it becomes such a strong relationship that you treat each other as friends and family members and anything else. Have you felt that? Have
Absolutely.
You felt what I felt?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it happened. I realized that I was with my family, away from my family.
Yeah.
When I started the Yuma transitions back in, again, I'm aging myself, 99, 2000. Because when all of us go to Yuma, most of us don't take our families. And so we are all we have over there. And that, I learned that quickly. As you know, the Yuma transition happens about Thanksgiving. Sometimes we're able to get home and sometimes we're not. And if we're not, I can remember many times in my home in Yuma, I would make Thanksgiving dinner and have the management from the plant come because they were who I had. That was all we had with each other for those of us who weren't going to come home for Thanksgiving. And so you learn that. And agriculture is it's so different. And I was speaking to somebody about this the other day, that it's such a dynamic industry. And unlike, the Bay Area where you have Google and Facebook and all these huge companies that are not ag, we base our lives every day on Mother Nature, mm-hmm. right? And mm-hmm. so today we may be starting Salinas early in March or what have you because of the crops. Our director of harvest, he can make a prediction, but Mother Nature is going to tell him otherwise, right? And so we have to be on our toes. And so HR being the foundation of the company, we have to be in tuned in all the areas of the company because we have to know when are we going to transition back from Yuma to Salinas, because then we got to do our transition layoffs in Yuma. We got to start them up in Salinas. When do we got to do the orientations? It's a circle that happens every few months that people don't realize, we don't understand. You guys are always so busy. It's Mother Nature, We don't tell it the rain to come or when not to come or the ice to come in Yuma and not to come. And we got to do, and we being our harvest teams, got to do their very best to predict on what's going to happen. And then that is a domino effect to the rest of the company.
So you're following the Mother Nature's idiosyncrasies in a way, right?
Correct.
And then making it happen.
And then, as you know, we're a grower, shipper, packer. And so what we bring out in the field is those commodities are going out to the coolers or they're going into the plant. Everybody has orders. And so again, all those orders are based off of what Mother Nature is doing. And so are we going to be able to complete the order of this customer or not? And we have to, right? And especially during the vital times of the year that our volumes are a lot higher.
That is true. For somebody not in agriculture, so you and I understood you when you said we are Yuma and Salinas and all that. For somebody who could be new listening to this podcast, who doesn't understand what are you talking about, Yuma and Salinas? What is that? What happens? Can you explain a little bit for somebody who might not know anything about it?
Well, so our crops grow in the Salinas Valley between March through September, October. And then because of the weather, and we go back to Mother Nature, crops, the same type of commodity and crops grow better in Yuma, Arizona, and that valley. And so what the industry does is they essentially pick up and go, move everything over there, and they process and pick over there. And then they transition back. So it's just
and the employees and everything else kind of transitions and
correct. There's a core group
right.
of employees that go back and forth. There's a core
right.
group of employees that just get laid off and stay and wait for the return. It varies.
Yeah. And when you're talking about this, the way Ippolito is growing, the way the operations are, right? Usually when you look at an HR person for other companies, they don't really have to understand operations, or they don't take the time to understand how operations and growth and all that impacts. So ag is very, very different in that respect, right? You have to understand what the goals of Ippolito are, that it's growing, they understand how this whole cycle works, the crops and all that, and then implement that from an HR standpoint. So that's a very different role as opposed to any other HR. Isn't that true?
I strongly believe in agriculture. As an HR person, you can't sit at your desk in a corner office and just work. You have to be hands-on, and you have to be involved in the day-to-day stuff to an extent, because it's a dynamic industry and it's changing every day. Every day there's something new.
Right.
And during a transition, there's something new. Again, our forecast team is trying to forecast the best they can, but it's not always possible. And so for me, I've always been a hands-on HR person. And although, I've always had my team, but I have to know what's going on because I'm the strategic thinker. And so when these changes are happening, or there's a pitfall somewhere or what have you, then I've got to be able to prepare for that and strategically think, okay, this is how we have to do it.
Yeah. So you play a big role in the strategy and all the
Correct.
operations and kind of how that's structured.
Right.
Yeah. So Joseph, when you look at your life, right, from where you started, going out of ag, coming back to ag, anything that stands out for you that had an impact on your life?
I think I want to say, again, I always use it where I say I grew up in agriculture. I grew up in HR. And I spent a huge part of my career at Taylor, but I love the family niche to it all and the togetherness. And I think that that's what always brought me on. And I love the people. We have a great culture from our field workers to our executives, and everybody plays a different role, but everybody's just as important. And I think that in agriculture, everyone sees it that way, because without our field workers, we're nothing. We can have as many orders as we want, but unless we have them out there picking, then so we have to appreciate that. And I believe that they are very appreciative of their work and their employers. And you don't find that everywhere. And I think that's what's helped me and kept us together and kept me back in ag, is there's a togetherness in agriculture that you don't find in other industries.
What is challenging about being in this industry? Not just, some people talk from a regulatory standpoint, from being a low margin business, but even from a personal standpoint, I'm pretty sure there are challenges of being in this industry, right? Is that
absolutely? I mean, there's
the craziness
there's
of it,
challenges
depending on Mother
every day,
Nature,
right? Like our phones are going off sometime at 4 a.m. because something's happened.
There's no time,
right? No,
there's no 9 to 5.
Sometimes it doesn't stop until 10 o'clock. And in agriculture, most of our employees are working 6 days a week.
Yeah,
and people, not all industries are like that. And we're not working 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
We're easily working 10, 12 hours a day. And it's just part of what we do.
I wonder why we do that. Is that a sense of ownership, or is a sense of fulfillment? I wonder why, people just tend to do what they do. I've known you for quite some time. You give it your 1,000%, not just 100%. Why is that?
Because my heart is in it. And that's important to me. And I always tell the younger crowds is you have to love what you do.
Yeah.
And when you love what you do, it's not work. And I don't look at it that way. I don't look at it as work. And my phone's going off at 8:00 at night, or, Ronnie's calling me at 9, 10 o'clock at night because I know that something's wrong. And if I'm not available to them, then in my opinion, why am I here? Right. I've got to feel what they feel.
Yeah. That's so true. Somebody was asking me that just earlier at the lunch meeting, and that passion for work, right? It's like the reason some of us work is not for the money or anything else. I mean, yeah, that's great. We get that. Right. But I think it's the passion and the excitement and creating solutions and impacting an industry. I think that excites me big time.
Never a dull moment.
Yeah. I was saying that once that excitement ceases, when it starts becoming a job, or like, this is my job today, then I think, you know what, then I might as well call it a day and say, okay, let me get out of this.
Absolutely.
But that's so true. That's so true. Anything else that you would like to share?
No, again, you've asked about challenges. And I think, obviously in Yuma, we face immigration challenges this year because of the borders, which, was part of our job to strategically predict that. And we predicted it would happen, and it's happened. We, to this date, have never had a full crew, but everyone's having that same issue. The other issue is we have an aging workforce. And our kids don't want to come in and work in the field, or they don't want to be tractor drivers, or that's just not their thing, right? They're, bless their heart, they're going off to college and they want other career paths. And so down the line, and then you add immigration to that, the immigration issues at the border, that it's a challenge. Every day we have to try to find or hope that, our government's going to realize what's happening, and that, okay, maybe we need to rethink what we're doing.
That's true, because when you think about it, this is the industry that feeds the nation, the world, right? Correct. And if we don't have the labor to work on it, then this is, it's a big impact to not just California economy,
in the world. Right.
Yeah.
Right, because our commodities in the industry, I'm not just speaking Ippolito, but our commodities in this valley go all over the world.
Yep.
And
this is the best. I mean, if you eat California grown, I was talking to our chairman of the board, Eric Bream, and oranges and the impact of, all the things that are happening and the cost and stuff. But the California grown oranges are the best oranges out there. The California produce that you produce, right, Ippolito, is the best out there, right? And I mean, sometimes maybe slightly expensive, but to eat that is to take care of yourself, right? You're doing yourself. And I see an impact, United being a healthcare company, and you see an impact of the things that we eat and what we do. I would recommend from United standpoint, if you want to keep the cost of healthcare down, eat California grown produce.
Right.
Yeah,
stay
because
healthy.
That's the best. So what does Ippolito, for somebody who doesn't know, what do you guys grow?
So, oh my God, you can put me in that spot. Our largest is the sprouts. We do sprouts,
Brussels sprouts.
So our largest is Brussels sprouts, and we literally have an entire operation in Gonzales that produces our Brussels sprouts from the fields into the processing plant, and then out it goes. We do the leafy greens, broccoli, cauliflower, are some of our largest commodities.
It was so funny. Our Jason, who's our general counsel at United Ag. So one of the things that we do is take our new employees on a tour of all the members, right? So he had come down to Ippolito and we did a tour. And then he goes back on that weekend and is shopping, and he sees a bag of Brussels sprouts and he sees the Queen Victoria sign on it. He said, oh my God, I was right here. And he took a picture. And so every time he sees Brussels sprouts, that's his thing to do. He takes a picture and like, oh, this is a member company.
Love it.
So all the way from California to Michigan.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's all over the world, right?
All over the world.
Yeah. That's pretty exciting. I know you've been involved with United Ag over the years, and we have a special relationship with you. We have kind of taken from every company that you've worked with, right? United Ag has been a part of that with you. So what is about United Ag that attracts you?
So in my position, I feel vendors, I don't like to call them vendors. I like to call them partners. And I strongly believe that we have to partner. And United Ag has always been great in partnering with me and where I was working. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really, really important because to me, my obligation is to our employees. And I take that serious and I instill that in my team. I instill in my team that when that door opens, you put your eye contact happens immediately to that employee because we're here to service them. And when I have partners behind us that look at it the way I look at it, it helps me and it helps my team and it helps the company and the employees. And I've always had that positive relationship with United Ag and the fact that you guys realize how important it is for me to deliver to our employees. Mm-hmm. And I can't deliver that information or, that service to them without your guys' support. And I've always had that support with United Ag.
Thank you for saying that, because when you think of United Ag, right, when you look at a health plan, we are sometimes focused on the cost to the employer and how do you do that. But in the the bigger thing, you are actually the employees and the members, the users of the health plan are very important.
Right.
And an employer like Ippolito is doing right by the employees by choosing United Ag. Right? Because somebody yesterday was saying, when you look at all the other health plans out there, right? I mean, all employers can say, I'm offering this as benefits, right? Your HR, you have a list of benefits that you offer and a check mark of a benefit that gets offered as any of the health plan. But he said, the way I see United Ag is when United Ag is the health plan of choice for that employer, that signals to me that this employer is taking care of the employees. So if you think of United Ag, it's if you want to take care of your employees, you want a health plan like United Ag. If you want it as a check mark and say, okay, I've offered benefits and good. I've offered benefit. Doesn't really mean anything. Then it could be any other plan. Do you see it that way? Because I was like, when he mentioned this, I'm like, yeah, that totally makes sense to me from our standpoint. But you just said that's reflected in how we do it, right? So that's awesome. Yes. That's awesome to hear.
Yes, because I think, again, we've worked together for years and I'd like to think that that I do find our employees important, right? I could stay away from the day-to-day stuff. And when employees walk through the door, not greet them, or if I'm passing them, not say hello. But when I start hearing things, that's why I like sitting where all the action is, because then I can hear what's going on. And if there's a complaint, I want to hear the complaints. I want to hear everything because that helps me make it better for the future and partner with the right vendors or the right suppliers. In my career, United Ag has always been that partner for me that has always looked at it the way I look at it. And that's what helps me a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's what we are passionate about. That's what makes my job fun and the employees at United Ag's job fun, right? Yes. Because we are delivering on that. Because that's what at the end of it, when it's all said and done, isn't that what this should all be about? Helping each other. Everybody. Right. So, it's like it's always exciting to be in your presence because it's exciting to see that you, from an HR standpoint, from an employer standpoint, kind of reflecting that. And I hope the hope is, right, this is a leadership thing that you learn from the ag industry and from some of the leaders like you in the ag industry, that at the end of it, it's about people. This is it. I mean, that should be our end goal with anything and everything that we do, right?
Right. And I think with that, HR, we don't always have it easy, right? Because we have to listen to the employees. We're always in the middle, right? So sometimes we can't ever do anything correct for them on the employees' side, right? But the more that they can see that we can do for them and that we're listening to them and we can do what we can, because then my obligation as well is to Ronnie, right? It's to the employer. He has me here because to protect him, to help him and shield the company so that we're not in trouble. But at the same time, what can we do that's better for the employees? As we grow, we want to do more for the employees if we can. And when I partner with the correct people, the right outfits, that helps me a whole lot because then I can try to do it all, but it's not always easy in HR. We're looked at bad, we're looked at good, we're looked at mediocre, we're looked at as hard
compliance.
People. And, right. It's just, there's always something. But as long as you come to work every day, you love what you do, and you walk away and you feel you made the best decisions you could today, then you're good.
Hey, I should drop the mic on that because kudos to you for doing that and kudos to Ippolito for doing that.
Thank you.
So, Joseph, you were mentioning earlier that family and growing up in Salinas was a big part of who you are, right? But I'm a little curious because this is ag. People who are not in ag listen to this, and there is always a little bit of a wonder around the Salinas Valley and the ag here. Where does this all start? Where did your family come from?
So, I have to say that agriculture is huge, right, in Salinas Valley, but at the same time, it's very small. And for me, I grew up with both my families involved in agriculture. On my mom's end, her father was a labor contractor, and she, in the 60s, was the first historically female harvest manager in Monterey County. And she worked for her brother-in-law, and she got out of ag. And although she had the passion for it, she got out of ag once being her youngest, started kinder. Then she joined the school district and did that so she would be able to be home on holidays and what have you with us. But she had a very strong willpower towards agriculture. And my father, he's half Pakistani. And so my grandfather came from Pakistan, and that was probably in the 1910s, 1920s. And he came with a group of men, and their journey was to become farmers in the U.S. And they succeeded. And this group of men, some of them were blood related, some of them were not, but they all became one unit, and they became brothers. And they treated each other like brothers. And they went into the El Centro, California, the Imperial Valley, and they all had their specialty of what they were going to grow. And so my dad lived on the farm at the ranch, and they all worked. They all got up early in the mornings and weekends and worked and did the field work and what have you to help my grandfather succeed in what she did. And then my grandfather ended up meeting a Hispanic lady in El Centro and married. And that's where we all came from. And so
that is so interesting. Yes. I've heard so many stories in the 5 years I've been doing this, and even more that I've been involved in ag. I've never heard. So this is very interesting. So Pakistani are like half. So you're like 1/4 Pakistani, correct. I would say.
Yes.
That is so interesting. So they came from Pakistan, and he settled here and married somebody, and that's how it all started.
Right. And there's actually, today I think El Centro's changed drastically as far as culture goes. But back in those days, more and more Pakistani men came from Pakistan, from India, and married Hispanic women. And today there's actually a book on my family that tells the stories of how it was to grow up in a Catholic home with Pakistan, with
like a Muslim, maybe, right?
Exactly. Yeah, so there was different religions and different cultures, correct, different wants and needs and what have you. So
that is so interesting. That is so interesting. So there's actually a book on this. So we should explore that. Do you know the name of that book?
I don't know it off the top of my head, but I have about 20 at home. So I'll have to mail you one.
Yeah, I would love to do that because then, you know what? We can include that name in the show notes. So that's so awesome.
Yes, for sure. Good.
So Joseph, thank you for being on this podcast. Thank you for kind of talking through your journey and why you do what you do. And kudos to you. Kudos to Ippolito for putting people first and doing right by everyone. This is why this partnership with United Ag works, because like you said, you look for partners like that. We also look for partners like that.
Right.
And it actually, you know what? When people take care of people and people take care of employees, it shows in every different way. It shows in utilization as a health plan. It shows all of that. So thank you. And thank you for being on the podcast. And thank you for being friend all these years.
Thank you.
We love to have you connected with United Ag all the time. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.